Welcome to a new episode of In Her Lens. My name is NADINE REUMER, and in this series, I chat with today's women in film about their journeys and experiences. Jasmijn Schover is a Dutch-Chinese-American filmmaker based in Amsterdam. Jasmijn creates documentaries, if they must be labeled, and she often refers to her work as visual poetry. Jasmijn was raised in The Hague, and in 2015 she graduated from the Nederlandse Film Academie with her award-winning film TARIKAT, a short doc about Sufism, a practice of Islam. In this episode, we talk about connecting to the essence of a story and the translation of feeling to work, the creation of tarikat and building trust with her subjects, as well as the impact of silence. And we discuss her upcoming film Death of Darkness, about the installation of electricity in a Samburu community in the north of Kenya. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Here is Jasmijn Schover on In Her Lens. Jasmijn, welcome. Welcome to In Her Lens. So happy to have you here. So I just want to start talking about you and, where you began. And for us also get grounded with the kind of person that you are, and then maybe the type of person that you are that leads in the type of artist that you are. So tell us a bit about your childhood, where you grew up, about your parents, siblings, just a bit about you.
So I'm Chinese American and I'm Dutch born. My father's Dutch, my mother's Chinese American. I have a younger sister, 7 years younger than I am, and a half brother who is 1.5 years older than I am. I could say that my family has an artist background. My grandma was a painter, and my grandfather was a painter from my father's side, and from my mother's side, it's more trade.
Do you feel like creativity is something that was encouraged at home?
Yes, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
It was all around me. My father is a furniture designer, industrial designer, and my mom is managing my dad's company, so she believed in his talent, and then also did like the business part, the trade part.
And so he started his own business. So I guess the whole entrepreneurial and also like dedication and discipline is something that you grew up around.
Yeah, being independent and very assertive. I think I got that from my mom.
Do you think you know where your love for visual storytelling came from? And like, I always think about this, like, why am I interested in video and film and seeing things represented on a screen? Do you know where that comes from for you?
It's definitely because I'm wired that way. Nature, nurture, not sure. I think my brain is not that developed yet in storytelling. It's still a craft I'm trying to comprehend. But for now, and if I analyze my own work, then I really dive into atmospheres and to like getting a vibe of something, and connecting to some sort of essence. That's why I like documentary, because it already gives me an input and I can analyze the input really well, and find sound to emphasize that essence what I'm finding, and to use editing to accentuate that essence and all those elements. And then in the end it could be just this really strong experience of a particular thing in reality, or my reality. And
it's interesting because it's like an intuition thing too, right? It's something that it's a form, an art form, but it's a very physical. I mean, it's everywhere now. Visual storytelling, like you open your phone, there's all these different mediums that people are expressing themselves.
But still the same layers. I have the idea that no matter if you use an image plus a little caption plus a text balloon, it's still like the same. Even though now we have Instagram, I think comic books or a little drawings in a newspaper still had the same layers of and there was also an author. I think the author now is also more important than it was before, but because that can add a layer of character throughout a series of drawings. When I feel a storyteller, or when I feel like, oh, this is my vision, it's actually when I'm slowing down life, and I take the time to observe and be open, then that's when I have the feeling I'm seeing the unique things that make me, because I'm touched by beauty.
Yeah, I mean, we live in such a fast-paced society that the chance to slow down and to take a minute and to look up, like, that's also one thing I think living in New York that I think about all the time, is when I'm walking somewhere and then I look up and I'm like, oh yeah, there are these huge buildings, and that there is some kind of like creativity influx that comes from taking a breath. It's calming down your nervous system and like you said, opening yourself
and when
up.
you change perspectives, so that looking up could even change your perspective on you, being completely absorbed by yourself in your mind to like, oh whoa, actually I'm part of something bigger,
part of a system.
Then you're already creating a little narrative, or you're adding something extra onto it.
When did the transition happen for you from a thing that I enjoy doing to a thing I want to do? That, you know, there might be less enjoyable moments while I'm doing it, but overall it's something that is fulfilling and I want to spend time on.
I just feel like an artist doing the things I want to do, and not having a career yet, because it doesn't feel like there's a master plan behind it. Just making every new film the best. I think it definitely happens when you feel there's a gap somewhere in society or in knowledge, in understanding, and you want to I want to have a role of connecting. So if there's this big confusion about something, then I'll be the one slowing down and sitting with this person or at this topic and try to investigate what is so weird about it. And if I have a closer look at it, what function can my film have? And if I follow this curiosity and this confusion, then I learn a lot. And it happened when I was 16 and doing my first documentary on transvestitism. So it's not the drag queen, but it's just the phenomena and the desire of manifesting yourself as a woman. And then talking from a guy point of view, dressing up as a woman, and then noticing that it was prohibited in the Bible, and not understanding the real value of separating the dressing code of femininity and masculinity, and then in gender. And I was already fascinated by this when I was 16, and I went to like this forum and chatted to these men and asked if I could interview them, and there was just so much I got to know, and I wanted to share with other people that became my first documentary.
Why documentary, do you think, for you? Because I know that now talking to you, like curiosity is and slowing down, those are key elements to who you are as an artist and as a person. But why documentary filmmaking as opposed to narrative?
It is a very complex art form, or because you're dealing with ethics more, and intention can be so off with reality, or your agenda, for instance, like wanting to capture certain things but then it not happening. So it's one of the most challenging things, because you constantly have to accept whatever is coming, and I think adapt your storyline that you have created in your mind, and see what is really there. So it's challenging me to reflect on my like inner compass.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's very confronting work in that sense. Yeah.
It's also not fair sometimes. I feel like, oh, we should have the same amount of budget as a fiction film as a documentary filmmaker, not because I want this high production value, but if this person is giving me her time because of liking, and I mean, if you look at documentaries, they're more often about people with problems and with little money than people with money. So giving them a voice, and they giving us our time isn't possible, especially in the Netherlands, to also just pay your characters. And then even keep it ethical. Because I think the payment doesn't mean, hey, I am asking you to do this and this, and in exchange for doing what I want you to do, I'm giving you a payment.
Right.
So because then all of a sudden people can think, oh, maybe it's an actor because you pay, but that I don't think that has to be the case.
I want to talk a little bit about the poetics of a visual medium, because I know that we talk a lot about this, finding the balance, because your work is very poetical. Your films aren't very talking head documentary. It's actually quite sparse language from the movies that I have seen. What to you is important when it comes to finding the melody in a movie, and especially in a documentary?
It happens in a really early stage of filmmaking. It's actually when the subject touches me. I just feel a connection with it in my heart without language. Like, wow, this is amazing. This is beautiful. And I'm so excited. That is a moment I want to share with other people. With TARIKAT, I also brought my crew and other people of the film industry. Like, you should come and see this. There's something here and this vibe, and how can we capture it? There was no narrative, and the idea sucked on paper. Yeah. It's like, oh, we're gonna film a ritual. Like, oh, this is just filming a ritual. It's not gonna play a role.
I think this is what you're bringing up right now is so interesting, because how do you express an idea for a film, right? Like, sometimes it's very straightforward. You can write it out. There's, you write your treatments, you do all of that, you pitch it. But sometimes it's also like putting into words what you are feeling, because movie is, yes, it's visual, but it's an experience. It's a whole body experience. So it is a very interesting challenge when you have this idea and then you have to express it in order to get approval by society standards, getting money to make it happen. It's a very interesting balance that you have to find as an artist. Like, I want to make this work, but I also need the money and I need the support.
Yeah, right. And it kind of sucks, right? Yeah. When you have dyslexia and you cannot write properly because all your sentences are fucked up, and you're raised Dutch and American. So I use like English sentence structures for writing Dutch, so that it's really confusing and mixed up. But when I talk obviously different. I've tried recording whatever I'm saying in conversations, all these editing, but there's something that when I have a pen or have my fingers hovering about the keyboard, that there's this error, and I feel a very big separation between the idea world and the writing on paper.
Do you have any tips for people who struggle with the same, or what has helped you in that translation?
Use everything. Now I've started drawing again, drawing shots, finding images, especially other film fragments. If you can make a short edit of combining all the films and elements that you think are nice, music pieces work a lot for me. So I listen to very experimental and cinematic contemporary music. All those elements can kind of help. Like, hey, this is the feeling of the image. Even you can use 3 completely different types of music and then describe each layer. Say, this is the soundscape and maybe more of the narrative of the film, the flow. And then you can use another piece of music which is opposite and say, for the same film, this is more the visual language of the film. Right. I'm actually very grateful that funds now are accepting, and also if I write emails and some of my films are known, that producers are inviting me over to drink a cup of coffee, so I can talk about my ideas and be like talking with my hands and with my body and shaking and smiling and sparkling when I'm talking about my ideas instead of writing it on paper. And now you also can do all these video pitches. Video pitches for crowdfunding, but also video pitches for funding. Just to put on your webcam. From my childhood, I'm quite comfortable with the webcam.
Okay, let's get into TARIKAT, because I'm a huge fan of this short doc. Let's just start at the beginning. Why did you decide to make TARIKAT?
I stumbled upon these ceremonies because I was doing research on how dance can be used otherwise than on a stage. So is there a functional way? I did not understand well yet that dance was so important to ground. I had no clue because I didn't come from a sports family. So actually the body was not that important in my childhood. It was more just, you can use it to paint the model. It's a figure, and it's beauty and it's aesthetic, and it wasn't this. I didn't have the associations with this earthbound thing, you know, not the spirit, but the body. I wanted to make a film about dance and spirit and dance and body, and that's how I found them. Yeah, that's how I try to translate something which is spiritual.
I found it very, for me, I'm not necessarily religious. I would identify as spiritual, very spiritual experience to watch, obviously to watch these people go through this, but also the film itself is very, there's a lot of rhythm and a lot of breath, and you yourself are actually pulled into that movement. But it is a very closed off community. Actually, it's a very private experience. How was that for you entering a community like that? And how do you build that trust?
I spent so much time with them, and I tried to get some clear ideas of if it was going anywhere, talking with like the head leader of the group, the spiritual leader, and he did not want to make any promises, which was very challenging for me, because I was like, I'm graduating and feels like something I want to graduate with, and can I please capture you guys.
This is your graduation film.
Yes.
From the Film Academy here in the Netherlands.
They just told me like, oh, you can film when you're ready, and it's like, oh, we'll know when you're ready. And I was like, how do I know when I'm ready? I was just reading books and trying to get ready, doing all these things like, okay, guys, I really understand you, and I'm not gonna abuse you, and I want to show the love and the beauty, and all these things with ISIS were also happening that time. And I've understood that whatever they're doing is not accepted by them, so they could be terrorized also as interpreting the Quran. So all these opinions, of course, about religion and how it's being practiced. I also told them that my interpretation will not be their interpretation.
And talk a little bit about the timeline of this film. So when did you run into this group, and how long did it take for you to start filming, and how long did the filming actually end up taking?
Yeah, so they come together every weekend, and I was there every weekend, every Saturday night, doing this ritual with them. So I was not partying as a student in my graduation year. I was really dedicated, learning about Sufism with them. It was after a half a year that they said, okay, it's a full yes.
Wow.
And then the full yes was so much risk taking, because I said like, it's gonna be this or no graduation for me at all. I really wanted to do something with the Sufis and the dervishes. Everything in post-production and filming happened really, really fast. We shot the ceremony 3 times, like 2.5. Used all the footage together and built one ceremony out of it. Also, everything's built up as if it's almost one song, but there's a lot of breaks in between. They even have some cups of tea in between the music.
Wow.
And so it's a 17-minute film, but I used a build-up structure as strong as possible, and I cut it down to 17 minutes instead. Yeah, it's a 3-hour during thing, and also with a dinner. So every Saturday I spent like 4 hours with them.
And was it just you, or who? Because did you film or was there anyone else with you that was handling camera?
Yeah, I had a camera woman that came on very late in the stage, because I didn't want to force this filmmaking onto them. I just wanted to see what would happen, and later when they were more open for it, I was like, hey, can I bring my camera woman? I would love her to just experience this, and we collaborate, we work together, we've made films together. I would want to hear her experience of this and how she would translate this into camera movements. And then afterwards, after she experienced it, we went into studio together, and she rented a camera, and I did all the movements on my knees, on sitting and standing. And then she was filming them in different ways, in different angles and different lenses, to see what would feel close and connected. So sometimes we used opposite camera movements from the body, and sometimes we moved with the, like back and forwards, we moved with the body. And that we also used in creating more speed and rhythm.
So it's separated male female as well, right? In the ritual. But did you and your camera woman go into the male space?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were allowed. And actually the women are also allowed to, just for the ceremony. They have an opinion that it will be more distracting if you mix male energy and female energy, and it's slightly different. So they say when people become fragile or lose their ego, they have like a different essence of energy in a way, and it's like stronger for a women group to be with other women. And then looking at it from that point of view, I'm like, oh, I can feel that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that parties with a girls only, it's different than men's.
Definitely. No, it's not at all a negative thing. I think it is like collective energies matter. And
for me, it was a big thing that I wanted the women to be comfortable with filming, because the women would be my focus. Because I saw a lot of emotional things in their faces. I could read their faces really well. And as a visual medium, I was looking for expression that could add layers. And I thought that face was just such a mystery, and those eyes and the tears coming down. Like, what are those tears from? Are they sadness or joy or really peacefulness and gratefulness? And you could
it felt like all of it.
Yeah.
So in the film, we're going to describe it a little bit. They go through this ritual to let go of their ego and come closer and remember Allah. And there's a lot of emotion that comes out, whether it's also a lot of breathing and tears start flowing, and it feels both happy and sad and everything in between. It's very, I mean, like I said, it's very intimate.
Also did some interviews with Daria, and it was
just for the listeners, who's
she's one of like the main characters, the main face that we're following, and she brings her children also to the ceremony, and she's one of the leading women in the group. She's a very strong woman, and I could also tell that her energy was always quite high. Like, she was never how do you call that, like chilling there. She always was like fully you could say competitive, or in a way, or very excited about going to the nights. So I liked her strength, and if her letting go was she was just like a power woman in this place. And I did interviews with her, and I also experimented with giving away personal information about what she does in daily life during the ceremony, but that just totally did not work. You just wanted to stay in that room and with that experience, and not be somewhere else with your mind. Like, I wanted to create emphasize a physical experience, also for the audience, and not make it a bit more airy or intellectual by saying that she's a school teacher and doesn't wear a headscarf in daily life because it's in the Netherlands, and you're like, what? This ceremony's in the Netherlands? Like, I didn't want to add all these layers. So yes, a lot of people, when they see the film, they're very surprised to hear that that this is a group of Turkish people in the Netherlands. That's one thing I wanted to say about the camera woman, because the men have a very overpowering ceremony. Like, they're more stamping, and the women's part is more delicate. It's more soft. Working with a camera woman, which is not like big build, helped us be invisible at the men's part, and to be humble with the women. I'll make decisions based on the characters and situation.
Yes, I do want to talk a bit about the way that you've built TARIKAT, about the movement and the sound, because it very much functions beautifully alongside each other, because the sound is informing the movement, but is the movement informing the sound? It's very fluently put together. One thing I noticed a lot was moving along the vertical or the horizontal, and with the feet and which way they're moving, or the swaying, or the I guess bouncing or heaving. So it's kind of an ineffable thing. You can't really, it's like intangible to understand what is informing what. So you explained a little bit earlier that you guys tested out some shots on you. But how did you build that from the ritual in the film?
It starts by documenting it. When are they standing up, and what happens when they stand up? after they stand, they're able to move, because from sitting you cannot move around in the space. And what implies moving around in space? Does that create more cohesion in the group, because everyone's moving and it becomes like this one big soup or flux? And all the little symbolic things and details I paid attention to, and the emotions. So I would say that I would feel strongly two waves of energy, like one small one, and then it would be like this, oh guys, we're doing this again, yum yum yum. You know, after this first excitement, you get this little taste, just like having an appetizer. There's this calmness and excitement, or silence before the storm. I used that. So I used kind of like 2 act in the ceremony, and then an introduction, like why are we in the ceremony? Why are we in the space? What does it mean to this main character? I use that as a little preface. And then finding music, also classical music. So I wanted the composer to make music to emphasize the emotional journey of the character.
Yeah, because I was going to bring that up with the language, because the language is quite sparse, and then with the breath and the stamping and the actual movement and the sound of socks or soft shoes and on carpet, plus the sound score is built into that as well. So it feels it really flows so well in each other that sometimes you don't even realize that you're just listening to breath, and then there's music and you're like, oh, I'm listening to some kind of sound score right now. And that all felt very connected. Mm-hmm.
The composer was Iranian, and he knows a lot about Sufism, and he really appreciates all the music. So when asking a composer, and this whole ceremony is already full of music, most composers, I think, would feel really threatened by how in God's name do I have to create, can I add another layer onto this film? Mm-hmm. And what is my role? He quickly discovered that it should not try to compete with their music. Like, I don't want to go into finding the same instruments and working with rhythm. Like the music layer should be also very intangible, moving around the space, just like the language and the text is kind of a glue.
It seems to be, and this is just from me watching it, reacting to what we're seeing, not the other way around.
Yeah, it just sometimes gives you a little bit of something.
And there's a little extra, like she says something, there's silence, and that's when you get if you speak Turkish, you will understand earlier, but that's when and then a little bit later you get the caption or the subtitle, and so you're experiencing it, and then you get an explanation, the glue to the next part.
Yeah, because silence was such a big topic also for enlightenment and silence and inner silence or peace. To have this very noisy ceremony and have silence as a topic was you need language and words and voiceover and music in order to create that contrast. Mm-hmm. Shifting, not giving all those layers at the same time, but placing them in different moments. You can play with the meaning of each and every single layer, and when number A connects with number 3, like there are like lines and one big braid in a way. What was important for me also was that my editor, need an editor for this project that has a feeling for rhythm and maybe have a background in music or playing an instrument, because I think it will help the process.
I think the editor nailed it. I think about 3/4 way through the film, there's silence, but there's still all of this movement that you're in this ecstasy, and then you meet that inner peace that they're striving for by just being with them.
That's also quiet. My favorite sequence in the film.
I'm gonna play a little for the listeners. We'll play a little bit of the sound, so that they know what I'm talking about. Silence is something that I wonder about its impact a lot of the time, and I think you experimented with it really well in TARIKAT and also in Death of Darkness. Do you know where your fascination with that kind of comes into play?
It grabs your attention when something happens. It, like a little sound, impacts your awareness. Having that in the beginning of a shot or in the end of the shot creates a different like hang up or a different suspense for how you continue. Like is the next sequence a relief, or is it actually more tension and more narrative? Hard cuts or soft cuts, like invisible cuts, they create dynamic. In a way, I use these things to I use, I think, suspense and flow. How do you see silence?
For me, it is a way to get into the perspective of the people in the film, and then in this case specifically, I would say Daria. It's a combination of entering the film more deeply through the means that I'm realizing that I'm watching a film. When there's another movie, Babel by Alejandro Inarritu, and he has it too, where there's a deaf character. She walks into a club and you hear the music, and then the music cuts off because you're experiencing the club through her eyes. And it's this weird moment where you feel more connected with the film because you're being highlighted, and you also don't have sound, so your whole body has a whole, like, you kind of, je schrikt op, you wake up out of this, out of the experience that you were in before, because there is also a huge build. I think it makes you aware of the form that you're watching, but through that more connected with it. So that to me is the power of silence. It's definitely enhancing the experience that you're having.
Yeah, and I think working with experienced sound designers, or the ones I like, they are very much aware of the importance of silence. Sometimes they're more like silence designers than they are sound designers.
Yeah,
because they question, like, why do you want a tram, or why do you want the noise of the highway here? Why do you want to fill up the space with chirping and bird sounds?
Yeah.
And I think we have a tendency to fill up a lot of things and make everything
Might
very
because
rich.
we're running away, because we're in a world where there's a lot happening all the time, and when you're in silence, like meditation, you want to move, you want to hear. It's kind of scary being in silence.
Yeah, and how often we cannot hear our own breath or our own heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much noise there.
Let's talk about a different kind of noise in our universe. Let's talk about light. So Death of Darkness we just watched it. It's not done yet, but real close. What I mean with the different kind of noise is this new movie you made is about how the world is becoming more lighter. There's more electricity available. And in this film, you go to a village in northern Kenya where they're officially installing electricity and they're getting light for the first time.
And coming from a nomadic background,
yeah,
where being in a place doesn't make sense yet.
Yeah.
So having a home address or electricity bills, this is all completely new to them.
How did you get to this story? How did you find it?
Going on a holiday, moving out of the city, connecting with nature, and reappreciating actually the darkness. I realized how much in my system it is when I come home to switch on the lights. Like, it's the first thing I do. I drop my bag, switch on the lights. And when in nature and there's no light switch, you improvise, or you feel the lack, like, oh, where's my torch? And I made this little walk in nature, and it was the end of season of the fireflies, but I saw one firefly, and I never saw a firefly before in my life. So I was like, what is this? Is this a firefly? I was like so excited, but it made a very sad light. So the light was like, it was not moving up and down like in a dance. It was stuck into place. So, and it was very far away, but the whole environment was already dark. But went to it and I saw the firefly and it was stuck in a spider web, and I intervened with nature because I wanted to save the firefly, and I caught myself thinking like, if this firefly would not have a light, I would not care for it. It would not mean. So this automatically made me think about like the meaning of light and how attracted I am towards light, and that there was all this dark space and all these animals that I was actually not paying attention to. I mean, I didn't kill the firefly. I just let it be after I saved it, see what would happen next. But this was a big insight. And moving back to the city, I just was so shocked about all of a sudden seeing a full moon. Like, I was not connected to the cycles of the moon, and all of a sudden, like, whoa, there she is.
I have that all the time, actually, because I do value the moon, and I think if the moon moves oceans and we're made primarily of water, it has to move us as well. But when you're living in a city, you don't see stars. And I was biking the other day and it came up and it was a full moon. It was like very orange. It was super low. It was truly shocking. And I was like, wow, I do feel, when living in a city, so disconnected from.
To me, then, one of the first things, the most easy things in a way to connect to nature with in a city, is listening to the rhythms of day and night. Like, we are diurnal animals and not nocturnal beings. So living in the rhythm of day and night is already how our hormone structure is built, and how we spread our natural energy over the day. I thought, wow, with the way that cities are living, it's really against this principle and against this nature within us. And that again made me feel like I felt something that other people do not connect with. A sadness, feeling that darkness is more important than we think, and that light is like overvalued, and it has so much function that actually we cannot compare the function of darkness anymore. Like, we choose light over darkness. Before, like, it would completely be forgotten what darkness is. I wanted to find the last darkness on the planet. Yeah. So I did research. Okay, what are dark continents? What are dark countries? What are dark places? If there's dark places, is there still something there instead of like being in the middle of the Sahara? Can I find some sort of civilization in darkness? And what is the importance of fire, or what kind of light do they have? And then coming to fire. So that's how my research went. And I even finding light and darkness, I went on the internet. So
electricity, man.
Yeah. Plugged in.
Yeah, it's interesting because then it's all tied together.
After I found a producer, he automatically also asked me, like, how are you going to translate your epic ideas about light and darkness into a film? And first of all, I wanted to make an art film, but still an art film about light and darkness, using colors, or making a screensaver kind of movie. Like, that was also not what I was going for. So then the NASA website gave me some cool information.
Yeah.
The books I was reading, I was highlighting tons of things, and I went to Kenya because it was an English colonized country. My English is better than my French. I wanted to go to Africa because it was like the continent of fire, slash and burn culture. So fire is still being used a lot for cooking, for controlling the nature. Here in Holland, we use fire only for having a little campfire or barbecue in the Vondelpark, but we don't have the wilderness that needs to be tamed. No wildlife, no lions to be scared away with. I was aware of all the ideas about and aware of everything that was happening in the world about this topic and about the colonization, and I wanted to also reflect on my role as a filmmaker in this country, and for who this story was meant. So I talked with also the ambassador of Kenya, with the Rural Electrification Authority, which is actually the Ministry of Electricity in Kenya. They did not understand why I wanted to film a village getting electricity. They just thought it needs to happen, and it's a nice thing, you want to document it because we are proud of electrifying villages. I actually did not already share that vision of I'm happy for them to get light, because I want to know what is there before. Yeah, working with people from a tribe that don't speak Swahili, so like the national language, they just speak their local language, and they've never encountered a filmmaker before, and just this really big cultural time difference and space difference, and it became so much easier working with a translator that was on my side, that has trust of the community. And my movie is about connecting with nature, so now I'm also busy with food and trying to make the darkness tangible. The tribe has all these ceremonies with the moon, so I'm thinking about giving all sorts of little bites and snacks, serving it after the film, so people can also chat about darkness and light and their experiences or being deprived from it in the city, with things that I will do some research on right now, like which herbs and plants and flowers are influenced by the moon, as you said already.
Cool.
And I can say like, hey, this flowers or this nectar is like highest and most open or most fertile. These seeds, the biggest harvester or the biggest producer of weed, Dutch weed, does harvest with the rhythms of the moon. Like a lot of tourists don't know like that.
I didn't even know.
Yeah. That the moon plays a big role for like Dutch weed for getting high.
Wow.
Not that I want to give joints, but there must be several other things that are just edible, have a special kind of like magical vibe to it.
Yeah.
And I would like to create like a shamanistic premiere with moon harvested bites, and make people realize like, wow, this is totally what we don't know this anymore. Like we lost this knowledge. We just have our tomatoes in greenhouses, and the watering systems and the light systems is all organized by technology. And to me, film has the power of experience, like a second-hand experience, and there's too much knowledge already competing with film as a narrative. So my attention, or I don't use film as transferring this information. I'd rather help people connect or give them an experience.
Before we end, we're gonna do a little rapid fire. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
All black or color?
Color.
Instagram or Facebook? Or neither?
Maybe TikTok, but I
haven't
tried that yet. I've heard that. No, rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Moving on. Thriller or comedy?
Thriller.
If there's one film that you think the world needs to see, apart from your own, of course, what film would you say?
Yeah, what comes up is Koyanskatsky.
It's a good one.
Terrorized into being consumers, surplus.
I'll link it in the show notes. What's the most recent book that you've read?
I'm reading No Logo of Naomi Klein.
Do you like it?
Yes, I can recommend.
Okay,
also
recommend. We'll link below as well. And a piece of music that you recommend people to listen to.
Maybe Kathleen Aurelia Smith. Yes, something of her.
Thank you so much for coming on In Her Lens. I'm so appreciative. Thank you for all your thoughts on documentary and poetical creation and connecting. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I am so enjoying creating this season. To support the podcast, you can hit that subscribe button and leave a quick review. You can follow Jasmijn on Instagram @JasmijnSchover, and her work, plus the works we talked about, are all linked in the show notes. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and until then, you can stay tuned on all updates on the podcast's Instagram @InHerLensPodcast. Please stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.